It's been over 4 years since the PS5 came out, and I've got two really important questions. Where the hell are all the new games? And what is with all these remakes that keep coming out? Here's what I think's going on. And please remember, this is just my opinion. I'm probably wrong, but it's just my opinion on the matters and what I think of what's going on. Let's start with the most obvious answer. Nostalgia. Everyone loves a bit of nostalgia. Me too. I'm very guilty of buying games that I'm probably not going to enjoy just now. An example of this, a couple years ago, I bought a Nintendo 64 on Facebook Marketplace and spent upwards of £200 to £300 on the console itself and games. And I think I only played it 3 or 4 times, to be honest. And that was an example of me getting overwhelmed by nostalgia. I would say I've learned a lesson, but I'll probably buy something stupid in about a day or so. Please don't get me wrong, I do love playing a remastered and a remade game. It gives people the chance that have not played these games before to experience them for the first time, or fans that have previously loved them to give them a chance to experience it again. There's nothing like playing one of your favourite games of all time and playing it when it looks absolutely amazing. It runs a bit better, it's maybe not as clunky as it was before. However, sometimes you do love the clunkiness of these old games. An example of this feature myself is one of my favourite games of all time is a game called Shenmue. They actually did a HD remaster of the first and second game just before the third one came out a couple of years ago. And the great thing about this, it allowed me to replay these games that were hard to come by just due to the fact that the original was on the Dreamcast or on the original Xbox, and these were quite pricey to buy themselves. I think that's where the biggest market lies, is the fact that most of these old games are really hard to come by, and when you do come by them, they are really expensive. For example, Simpsons Hit and Run, absolutely great game, very old now, but I've seen it in shops like CEX for upwards of £80, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And then you've also got the cost of potentially buying the console that you have to play that game on, a GameCube, PS2, Xbox, and that's just an extra cost on top of that. So if you're wanting to play a game, you're looking at potentially a couple £100 just to play one game that you love from your childhood. And to be honest, that's just not feasible for everyone. It's a win-win situation because the customer gets the game, the company gets some money, everyone wins, everyone's happy. This is why I think there's been such an issue with piracy over the last, say, 10 years or so. Just because people haven't had access to these consoles, haven't access to these games, or just simply frankly do not have the money to buy all these old games that they want to get, so they resort to something like piracy to get that. I do understand that some games are just not possible to buy anymore, and the only way you can get them is via piracy. However, I obviously can't condone this. Another reason I think we're getting so many more remakes now than ever before is because all the gamers that played these games when they were younger are now in their early 20s, early 30s and early 40s, so now they've got much more disposable income than they did when they were a child. These game companies know this for a fact, and now they're coming at us hard, and they're coming hard and fast, yeah. And it's working. Studies show that players are more likely to purchase a remake of a game that they grew up with than a completely new IP. Nostalgia is a massive driver of the entertainment industry as a whole. Just look at all the movie reboots and remakes that are coming out recently. Gaming is just basically following the same trend. You've got things like the Harry Potter TV show, which really doesn't need to be rebooted into a TV show. It's not that old. Come on. In 2023, remakes and remasters accounted over for 20% of gaming sales, up from just 9% a decade ago, which doesn't seem like a lot, but trust me, it's probably a lot of money. Obviously, when you look at this from a financial side, remakes are a really relatively safe investment. The storyline, the characters, and the core mechanics are already well established. For example, you've got games like Spider-Man 2 on the PS5 that cost upwards of $315 million to make, which is just absolutely insanity when you really do sit down and think about it. So remakes don't really seem like a bad idea from a publisher's perspective when you really do sit and think about it. You might spend 5 to 6 years making a brand new IP, spend hundreds of $millions on it, and then it just sits and flops. Then what do you do? I don't know this for a fact, but you've got to imagine the marketing costs are a lot less significant than releasing a full game. Because you know those publishers love all the money they can possibly get. Look at Take-Two for example. They've released GTA 4 about 6 million times, maybe? So let's move on to another reason why we think we're getting more video game remakes in the last couple of years. I think it's down to how far technology's come in the last sort of 15-20 years. It's just insane how much we've progressed in such a short period of time. If you compare the best games from now and 15 years ago, there's just no comparison. The technology's just come such a big distance for such a short period of time, and it really does show when you look back at all these old games. So that's another reason why I think we're getting so many more remasters, is because we have technology to just make them better. Don't get me wrong, we've had an absolute few shiters over the last couple of years, and I'll pop a few examples on the screen now so you can see. Shame the shite remakes. I've also heard this quote from a few developers just basically saying the same thing over and over again. They always basically say this is their chance to basically bring the actual original vision to life, something they couldn't do back in the day just due to hardware limitations. which I like to believe, but sometimes I think sometimes it's just a bit of a cash cow. But it could be true intentions. So, do I think original games are dying? I would say no. And here's the reasons why. This generation has also seen some really incredible original games, from Elden Ring, redefining open world RPGs, to indie games like Hades. I would say creativity isn't dead just yet. It's just that remakes and remasters are just an easier sell to the audience, and just less of a hit on the wallet for the publisher probably. Think of it basically like the film industry. Remakes and sequels coexist with fresh stories. The gaming world's basically just no different. The future of remakes, where do I think this is going to go? So, where do we go from here? With AI technology and improved engines, remakes are only going to get more ambitious and more lazier, unfortunately. If you want proof of that, just look at the absolute state of Grand Theft Auto Definitive Edition when it first launched. Oh my god, that game was a fucking big pile of absolutely steaming shite. However, over the last couple of years, they've tried to update it, fix it, and in the last day or so, week or so, they've actually just released a random patch with a big update, so might be worth checking out. But still, that's no excuse for what fucking state of a game that was when it first came out. Sorry, I'm very passionate about Grand Theft Auto games and the state that they're in at the moment. They're just the worst right now. But everyone knows I'm going to buy the new GT. Fucking nostalgia. Anyway, a bit off topic. But as the industry moves forward, there's also growing demand for remakes to innovate, offering new storylines, expanded content, or different gameplay experience. In fewer words, players don't just want prettier versions of old games. They want remakes that justify their existence, like Final Fantasy Remake, reimagining the original story entirely. Which I'm all for. I'd love a couple games that maybe from my childhood that, if they remastered them, changed the story a little perhaps, changed what happened in the end, added some more content. I'm all for that. So while it might feel like this console generation is flooded with remakes and remasters, there's a method to the madness. It's about nostalgia, business, technology, and giving fans the chance to relive and sometimes rethink their favourite gaming moments. What do you think? Are remakes overdone, or do they deserve the spotlight they're getting just now? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've got any favourite games that have been remastered, pop them in the comments, or if there are any games that you'd like to get remastered, feel free to share that as well. I'll even tell you the one game I'd like to get remastered. I would probably go for Simpsons Hit and Run. I'd love to see that get remastered.